Welcome, audience, to our presentation for ECV 2022 conference. I am presenting on behalf of three authors of the paper. The title of this presentation is Indigenous Culture Promotes Children's Esteemed Learning Through Play in Early Childhood Education Settings. First, I would like to acknowledge the Wiradjuri, Nanawal, Gandangura, and Bipai peoples of Australia, who are the traditional owners and custodians of the lands on which CSU campuses are located, and pay respect to their elders, both past and present. We are the authors of this presentation. Dr. Shukla Sikder is a lecturer at Sturt University. Courtney Glazebrook is identified as an Indigenous Australian and worked as a research assistant in the project. I am Alamgir Hossain, studying Master of Indigenous Education at Macquarie University, Sydney. During the presentation, I'll briefly discuss the literature review, present research question, unpack theoretical lens followed by research methodology, then show the research data and analytical framework. Finally, discuss the findings and present conclusion of the study. The current literature states that there is a growing demand to incorporate teaching practice for STEM learning activities in early childhood settings. However, there is very little research literature regarding children's STEM learning using cultural lens. It is found that educators' lack of confidence is lack of confidence in teaching STEM is identified as a gap. STEM learning opportunities as part of Indigenous culture through play are still missing in early childhood education settings. In science education, it is predominantly Western world perspectives that are represented. However, there are many ways to view the world, and when we only consider Western perspectives, we may not allow certain forms of knowledge or understandings to emerge. In this stage, education can decolonize their mind, their thinking, to apply their cultural knowledge. Thus, investigating cultural construction of knowledge in science is important for building shared understanding and respect across and within cultures. These research investigated how educators can promote Australian Indigenous culture for children's STEM learning opportunities through play. In this presentation, we specifically focus on science, engineering, and art-based learning through cultural play in education settings. In the process of historical development, social human changes the methods and devices of their behavior, transform natural instincts and functions, and develops and create new forms of behavior, especially cultural. For example, in the 1980s or 1990s, we used letters or telephones as communication tools. Nowadays, we cannot think of mobile for communicating with others. This is how we create our culture. Cultural historical research methodology. According to cultural historical research, child development is a dialectical process between the child and their social and material world as a form of cultural development. Research method. Digital video observation. A total of 50 hours of video data are collected over a period of 7 weeks in regional early childhood center in Australia. Representing 64 children aged from 10 months to 5 years, involving community people and high school students. An analysis of 2 hours, 46 minutes video data on preschoolers, science, engineering, and art-based activity in their culturally valued practice for this paper. Data analysis framework, the dialectical interactive approach we use. Okay, next, what's the video clip on how educators engage children to build a sculpture using available natural resources. The dialectical interactive approach has been used to analyze the data to understand the process of children's science, engineering, and art-based learning through culturally valued play. Next. Thank you for watching the short clips. Analytical framework. 4 phases are outlined to understand the holistic process of how children's STEAM learning is developed in a cultural valued play experience. The 4 phases model is derived based on chosen culturally valued play activity, which is the planning phase, play-based action phase, product or outcome phase, and pedagogical reflection phase. That is 4 P phases. In the planning phase, they decided to build a sculpture. Play-based action phase, they collect logs, wools, sap from pine trees, and build a sculpture together. And product phase, a visible outcomes is to produce the sculpture, and the invisible outcome is to develop children's science, engineering, and art-based skills. In the pedagogical phase, educators revisit their plan. How did the activity work for children? What they learn and how it can be taken forward for children's future learning. And our findings is here. Educators choose indigenous lit culture to build a sculpture using natural resources available to the center. Educators also select a risk play for building the sculpture, as they use hammers to join the logs and an electric stove to make natural design, and engage children in all the steps. Children are engaged in each experience, such as collecting natural dried plants, burning natural sap to produce glue, hammering nails to create the shape of a sculpture, and using wool to design the sculpture final form. A small science, engineering, and art-based experience. You can see a small science learning occurs in the risk play, such as hammering the nails to join the logs, experiencing a chemical reaction while making natural resin by burning sap and adding charcoal properties of the materials like hot, cold, sticky, identifying the different color, wools, and much more. Collective dialogue supports children's engineering skill, such as planning, problem solving, design testing. and decision making. And this is because all of them were aware of the final goal to build the sculpture. The sculpture design process was a combination of familiar indigenous art culture to educators and children. Thus, we were interested and spontaneously engaged in the whole process. Finally, we conclude like this. Children's STEM learning can be promoted using traditional indigenous culture as they find learning interesting, valuable, and authentic. If children learn to use indigenous culture to extend their academic knowledge from the early years through play experience, it will impact positively in children's learning journey, as well as enrich indigenous traditional culture. References you can see on the slide. And thank you, audience. Thank you very much for your time.